What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the E4 Explicit podcast. And today you are going to watch and hear James Harrigan, who's a political philosopher, talk about everything from AOC wearing the tax the rich dress all the way to the collapse of the federal government and the economy. This one starts out really strong, upbeat, happy, and then it kind of teeters off when we start talking about the negative aspects of these giant bills that are being passed for trillions of dollars, and who's really going to be the ones that are going to have to pay for this in the long run, aka you and me and our children, really. Please like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell notification so you get notified every single time that I post new content, which is every Friday. Sometimes I'll do Saturday. I'll throw in a bonus episode here and there, but every week there's a new episode of the E4 Explicit podcast. So enjoy this episode of the E4 Explicit podcast with political philosopher James Harrigan. See you next week. Peace out. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of E4 Explicit Podcast. And today we have political philosopher.
That's a crazy thing right there.
Hey, listen, I'm just doing what I'm told.
Right.
James Harrigan, who has been on multiple times with his BFF Anthony Davies, but today
slow down.
You guys are best friends.
He's irksome, I think is the correct word. He's irksome.
He's gonna watch this and be like, yeah, whatever.
Well, the first thing he'll say is, "What is irksome, James?"
Yeah.
He doesn't have that granular control over the English language that we might think he would.
Where is he from?
Anthony is from the middle of Pennsylvania, a town called Montoursville, which is famous for hosting the Little League World Series every year. A thing that Anthony cannot understand at all because he doesn't know the first thing about baseball.
I'll say he does not seem like a sports guy to me.
No, he is not.
He's not from another country?
No, that would have made more sense though, wouldn't it?
I swear I was like, he's got a twang, and it's not like a southern twang. It's like I don't know.
No, he has unique vocal mannerisms, which I like to emulate at times. Occasionally I answer the phone as Anthony, and it confuses people to no.
That's so funny. I'm fascinated with this, like the how he talk. I was concerned. I'm like literally Googling. I'm like, where is Anthony Davies from? I'm thinking it's going to be like some like Eastern European country, but it's middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, if you really think about it, right? If you close your eyes and think about the way he speaks and the sound of his voice, it should be very clear to you that probably the biggest influence during his teenage years was James Tiberius Kirk from the Starship Enterprise, because he kind of talks like that. Right?
He does, yeah. Captain Kirk.
Yeah. And then when Anthony met Captain Kirk in one glorious moment a few years back, I think we ran the risk of having the universe implode upon itself. But no, we made it out okay.
He's a big fan, I take it.
Oh God. During we were watching, he was going to meet James T. Kirk in the back of the hall after a speaking gig was over, and halfway through it, he leaned into me and he said, "Can you believe I get to meet William Shatner?" It's like, yeah, well, you pay $500, you probably meet anybody you want.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's so funny. I love how we're spending the first 5-10 minutes of this talking about Anthony and his.
That seems fair. It seems fair.
100%.
I have been stuck with that bastard for about 12 years now, and it feels, for all the world, like a marriage gone bad, right? But that we keep going because the family business is such that we really need to keep it going.
It's working.
So we're in that time now where we kind of ignore each other for a few days.
Yeah, it's like when you're at the dinner table, it's you eat and...
As I call it, heaven. I don't have to think about it for 2 fucking days. I can say fucking days on your show, right? It is E for explicit.
It is. We can be explicit.
I don't have to be circumspect in my use of language.
No, you don't. Do you have to do that on words and numbers?
Well, we did have to do it on words and numbers when it was sponsored by Fee, because really it was a PG-13 that they were aiming at. We struck off on our own maybe a month and a half ago, and now I don't have to moderate myself. But here's the thing. We record the thing, and then I upload the files, and I promptly forget about it because I'm not an anal retentive piece of work like Anthony is. But he takes those files and starts editing them. And curiously, he always edits out the most fun that I have.
Yeah, the F's and the B's and the A's.
and
Yeah.
and anything I do at his expense. And yeah,
Ah,
somehow it never makes it into the
it
episode.
doesn't make the final cut. Come on, Anthony.
You know,
We
you
gotta
know,
talk. We gotta talk to him about this.
this is quickly becoming like a therapy session
Yeah.
for me. Do you want to hold up a doll so I can show you where he touched me and this kind of thing?
Oh my god. Listen, I can. What's your address? I can send a bill. I mean, it's no problem.
That's going to do about as well as all the other bills who make it to the section. Right into the garbage.
Right to the garbage. All right, cool. All right, well, then let's talk about some stuff that is crazy right now.
Well, that leaves a list of damn near everything.
Everything. So
which part of the lunacy are you interested in?
So I have a list of things I emailed you, and of course, I figured all the things that you were like, oh, I could sleep talk that to you.
Probably, and I got to admit, in my usual lazy way, you sent it, I glanced at it, I never thought about it for another second.
Oh no, yeah, I wrote it down.
You can steamroll me today with things I greenlit yesterday.
Oh yeah, no, it's well, a lot of the stuff we've kind of touched on briefly with other discussions with since you and Anthony have been on, but not been able to really kind of like deep dive. And also, side note, I've recently started a TikTok account and have gone viral and blew up. And a lot of the clips, like I just posted a bunch from Anthony the other day, immigration, free healthcare, all this, and it's like, I mean, hundreds of thousands of views in like a day, and it's just like
that's crazy business right there. That's absolutely crazy.
It's crazy, and I mean, 500, 600, 700 comments of people stitching me. Good it's God. Like I'm like, you guys are crazy, and I like half of them are Canadians, and they're like, oh, he's right, eh? And I'm like, oh my God,
I'm still trying to figure out Twitter.
Yeah,
the fuck. God.
It's crazy, man, and so I'm posting these little clips. So I'm gonna try to get some gold out of James Harrigan and see if I can.
Good luck to you.
Go viral.
We'll see. I don't think I can. I mean, it seems that whenever I see somebody making a TikTok, they're always dancing in some way.
No, this is not.
That ain't never going to happen.
No,
not going to happen.
I'm not doing no dance moves.
This right now is as animated as I ever get.
100%. Same. Yeah, I'm not doing any. I'm not going to put on a skirt and a blouse and put some makeup on.
Is there a reason why you went right to that?
Because it's like that's all TikTok is.
That seems like the kind of thing that I never would have gotten to. So I really wonder why it is you're thinking about that.
All right, vaccine mandates. Here we go. So
it's like the speed round, right? Yeah. Let's go lightning round.
Yeah. No, I think. Well, I just wanted to get your take on not the vaccine mandates because there really aren't any for like the general population, but they did. For businesses with, I think, 50 to 100 or over 50 employees.
Yeah, there's all kinds of trouble on the horizon here. Right. And you can kind of see where it's all going to come from. We start with a pretty, I think, simple presupposition that vaccines save people's lives. Now, I'm not willing to say that I think that is incorrect. That seems exactly right to me. Vaccines save people's lives. And it seems that almost everybody can admit it to some degree or another. I mean, there's still those 8 or so % out on the tail, absolute cranks who will never see the obvious thing in front of their faces. But, okay, vaccines save lives. This vaccine is like all other vaccines. It saves lives. So, I mean, the major premise, the minor premise, and here we sit, right, that, yeah, we should all have that vaccine. But should it be mandated? There's the question. And there are some groups, and I'm thinking especially about blacks in this country, who probably have a historical grievance so strong, given medications that they were forced to take, how they were turned into medical experiments and things like this. I don't know how you look them in the face and tell them they have no choice but to go do this.
Right.
I really don't. So we're left with a lot of bad choices, right? I don't think we can mandate that this happen. And I can tell you that, I was down getting my shot literally the first moment of the first day that I was able to get it. I'm immunocompromised. Lots of people are. Last thing I wanted to do was deal with COVID. And it turns out probably already had COVID anyway. From that time, I almost died laying on my couch coughing for 10 days.
Right.
So here we are. But what are you willing to tell people? How much of their liberty are you willing to impede or confiscate in order to get them to do what you think is the right thing. And now there are no good answers. Right? Now, anybody who thinks there's a great answer on one side or the other of this is just an idiot. There are no good answers. There are a host of bad. And if I were made the king of the United States tomorrow, I might be marching people through vaccine lines. I really might. Then again, as a personal liberty guy, I know that that's offensive because it's offensive to me.
Right.
So what do you do given the circumstances? And I think there's really no good answer here, and I don't think there's going to be a good
Yeah,
answer.
that's kind of like the vision that I'm seeing, and from what I've talked to like virologists and all these people, and I'm speaking to one in a week or so who's like Harvard, MIT, like high level person, and I got a lot of questions for them because they're obviously pro-vaccine. I was like 50-50. I've talked to virologists before, even before the pandemic happened, and I've never big on vaccines and this and that, and I know they save lives, and I believe in science personally, versus like, oh my God, if I get this vaccine, is it going to make an arm grow out of my head or anything crazy? There's people out there that are just like, they think that, oh, like, it's so funny. I hear the classic, oh, the government is just doing it to track you. I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but there's a phone here that they could literally track that they already.
If they want to track you, they've already been doing it. Trust me on this one.
Yeah. And a vaccine is, not, there's way more unobvious options. But,
right, and we got to listen to people go on and on and on about how Bill Gates is inserting something into. I mean, give me a fucking break. How fucking stupid are you?
Yeah,
that you really believe that. I mean, that's just fucking dumb.
I know, it's insulting.
Let me try. I'm going to try not to sugarcoat my opinion for much longer. But I had all of my children and the wife. We all got it on the very first day we were able to get it. And I keep thinking about the anti-vaxxers, right? And you wonder what they're thinking. And I go back historically, right? And I think about the polio vaccine. People went outside and danced in the streets. This is literally true. They danced in the streets when it was announced, and they said things like, now our children don't have to die anymore.
Right.
Who's anti-vax again? Tell me.
Right.
Because we eradicated polio.
Right.
It's gone. Now, it's not gone in India, say, or Pakistan, but it's gone here and every other place in the first world. And if the anti-vaxxers want to tell me how evil vaccines are, well, I've got a counterexample for it.
Right.
And then a bunch of other ones too. I have 3 children. I remember when they were little and the vaccine schedules that they were on. There's not a single one that I look back upon and say, geez, we shouldn't have done that one.
Right. Measles.
I remember we didn't do the HPV for them because I figured that was a behavioral disease. And if they wanted that one, they'd have plenty of time to opt in later. Right. But everything that was not behavioral, right? Anything that you could catch by walking down the street, I couldn't wait to vaccinate them against those things.
Right.
And you look really young. Were you like 12, 13? Because I remember when I was young, when I was 6 or 7, dinosaurs roamed the earth. Moses lived next door. Back then, chickenpox, there was no vaccine for chickenpox. And parents, not my parents, I got it anyway, but parents used to invite children over, and they would have a chickenpox party. They would run one infected child through the room until everybody was sure to get chickenpox, because it's so much better to get chickenpox as a very young child than as a young adult, right? If you get it as an adult, you may well end up sterile, right? It's occasionally lethal, but when you're 7 or 8, you get the chickenpox and everything itches for a minute and then it goes away.
Right.
I couldn't wait to get my kids vaccinated against chickenpox. Who the fuck wants to go get chickenpox on purpose?
Right.
What the fuck's wrong with you? If you have an option to not get the chickenpox on purpose, that's what you should do.
Yeah. No, chickenpox, they sucked as a kid.
They do. They absolutely suck.
Yeah.
And, by the time you get to be my grandmother's age, say, when she got shingles, ouch, right? Beyond painful.
Which is like adult version of chickenpox, no?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So, we may end up needing boosters because may not have immunity into our 70s. But fuck it, give me a booster.
Right. Right.
Sure.
I know. Yeah.
And,
It's good.
so too every other thing. Right. There's not a vaccine against happiness. There's vaccines against things that'll kill you.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, the more the better.
Yeah. I agree.
Although I have to tell you, when I pulled up and I got the shot, I looked at the woman who gave it to me. And I said, "Am I autistic yet?"
God.
And I
Did you laugh?
don't think she didn't think that was funny at all.
Of course not. No, that's hilarious. Well, that's true. I mean, that's kind of like, for example, my when I talked to the virologist, who's Dr. Rebecca Katz from Georgetown. She's actually on the Biden task force for COVID now. Just she can't talk to me anymore. She's like, I can't do
Well,
anything until I get out.
You're not allowed to have personal opinions when you're a public figure.
Right. So
fair enough.
I was like, all right, I'll wait till that administration's out of there.
If she'd worked for the Trump administration, she'd already have been fired.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it would have been good. Yeah, I hit her up like every 6 months. I'm like, hey, she's like, can't yet, but then she gives me resources of people. But I talked to her and I told her my sister. My sister's like lives in Ojai, California, very whimsical, hippie-ish, and wasn't getting her children vaccinated. And we had that conversation. Like what you're saying is, that's why we're starting seeing like populations of like measles and like other not smallpox, but other things that were popping up out of nowhere because
mumps, rubella, right? The MMR vaccine.
Yeah.
All these things. And where do you find them? Find them in California. Rich white people.
Yep.
These things were always poor minority communities, right? That's who got hammered with these things. But those people have enough common sense to go and say, well, we have this option before us. Let's maybe take it.
Right.
Whereas the upper middle class and beyond in California, they get to be fashionable with their boutique opinions.
Right. Oh,
and they're just. I think it's just stupid.
Yeah,
I can't say this forcefully enough. We have a way to keep our children from becoming ill, and I mean capital I ill, not a cold, but something that could, in fact, kill them.
Right.
We have all kinds of mechanisms. We should take them right up. We should take every single one of them.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree.
The difficulty becomes, when is freedom less relevant than getting this done? I don't know the answer to that question, right? Because I'm pretty sure it's not like I haven't thought about these things before, right? This isn't a brand new thing. Somebody has said, well, okay, go figure this out. I've been thinking about these sort of things for 35 years. And if I look at this particular thing and I say, I don't see a clear answer, I'm pretty sure that's because there's not a clear answer.
Right.
There's going to be something that we're going to argue about forever. And, I wish to God we had some kind of better argument to put forth. Anthony, bless his soul, came up with yeah, that's right. You heard me. He's got a pretty good example here. He says that there's, pollution is a negative externality, and governments exist in no small part but to address negative externalities. And almost everybody is going to nod yes to that. And he said, people who are ill are engaging in a kind of pollution. And if that's true, if it's a negative externality, then government could have the power to regulate that too. And that's right. That may be horrifying to certain people, and I get that. But there's nothing wrong about the argument. Right? It proceeds as it should, and it concludes correctly.
Right.
Okay, well, that may change things quite a bit. It's not going to make anybody any happier than they were already. And we posted this a couple of maybe nights ago. Anthony's always been Anthony has already been referred to as a communist and these kinds of things. A tool of the devil.
Killing him in the comments.
Yeah, because people often think these things, and we just don't get it out in public enough. Anthony's an economist. He sees the world that way. He offered an economic vision that might answer a very difficult question. I agree that the question is difficult. I think his presuppositions in his argument are correct. Therefore, it might well be right that government exists to take care of negative externalities, and that's exactly what we've got here. Right. Now, I can tell you about my own behavior, right? Because maybe this will shed a little bit of light on how I think about these things. At first, I was not terribly interested in wearing a mask. I hate it. Right? What has the mask wearing taught me? It's taught me that I'm always too hot and have terrible breath, just like everybody else learned. Right? And so I'm not going to wear this fucking mask. And then all of a sudden, everybody in the fucking world loses their minds and they're yelling at each other in public over mask wearing. And I said, I'm pretty sure these masks aren't making the critical difference here. However, if I can put one on and make all of my fellow citizens more comfortable, then of course I will.
Right.
It's not that consequential. It's not that big a deal. So I put them on. And some months later, a year later, whatever, every single person has had the opportunity to get a vaccine. Well, I don't care if you got it or not. That's none of my business. But you had the opportunity to, which meant I rolled up my mask, put it in my pocket, and everybody can bite me if they think I'm going to wear it again.
Right.
I have no choice but to wear it on an airplane. Although I say bite me on the airplanes a lot too. But look, I was happy to do it because it really did make people feel better, and people were out of their minds with fear.
Right.
Yeah, but after they've all had the chance to be vaccinated, why do I have to ruin my day now?
Right.
And I don't think there's any more a compelling reason.
Right.
Children kind of pollute the problem here. It's always children are always the problem when you look to get a general rule that covers everybody. Now, children can't be vaccinated yet. So you see where the friction's going to come.
Right.
Now, children, when they get COVID, tends to be incredibly mild.
Mm-hmm.
But, if I had a 3 or 4 year old child, I wouldn't want to hear that.
Right.
I'd want to hear how much of a risk there was.
Right.
Well, here we are. We're just going to yell at each other for a while longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we do, right? When we get bored, we just start yelling at each other.
Well, hearing you say that about the mask, I feel like since you're so, as far as when it comes to like liberties and like your freedoms and stuff like that, Constitution, like that says a lot, honestly, because like I felt the exact same way, where it's like, I don't want to wear this, but it's helping. It's for the greater good. People
were terrified.
Right.
They're absolutely terrified.
They were.
And I felt awful about that. Right. And look, we're all in this together. How do I know? Well, we're all in everything together.
Right.
And whenever I can make things better for other people at almost no cost to myself, I'll do it every time.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But after a while, maybe you should just shut the fuck up and leave me alone now.
Yeah.
Right?
After a while, it's like, listen, I did my part. Now do yours.
Yeah.
And what kills me is the two things. One is it's so politicized. The whole vaccine, man, everything about it. And then also the like Fauci, for example, it's like, we can do this, but we can't do this. Like when the riots were happening, and we talked about this last time, we talked a little bit about like, okay, how is a super spreader sports football game not okay, but a riot for George Floyd.
Yeah, why can I go riot but not have a birthday party?
Yeah, it literally that's what kills me, is the inconsistencies of it, and then the fact of like, okay, well, get vaccinated. You don't have to wear a mask, and then when it's time to get vaccinated, guess what? You should still wear a mask.
Got to wear a mask anyway. That's
what.
And then they double down on it, right? Because now you might have to wear 2 masks.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. On camera with 2 masks. I'm like, get out of here.
And everybody out there like me who's done significant work in political philosophy watched Fauci go on and on and on and on, and it caught him in how many different lies?
Right.
And he said, well, it was for the greater good, and that's Plato's or Socrates. Oh God, it's blank on it. It's the noble lie. Right? That sometimes you just have to tell people a lie, and if it's noble, everything's just fine. So Fauci, of course, well, it seems to me like he was really selling the Fauci brand first, but secondarily, he was trying to look after public health. And if the great unwashed, like us, need to be lied to in order to get our behavior in line with what elites think we should be doing, well, fuck it, said Tony Fauci. Right. And, sooner or later, when you catch him in enough lies, you stop listening.
Yeah.
So I don't give 2 shits what Tony Fauci says at all.
Tuned him out 6-8 months ago. I was like,
yep, that's right. That ship has sailed.
Yeah. Which bad for his brand.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's, well, he'll still always be able to fill half a room.
Oh. True.
So who knows? But this whole thing, the whole COVID business has been a nasty object lesson in how government works.
Right.
From the lies it tells you to the things it mandates, right? You get to see it all, warts and all. And there are a lot of warts here. So what can you do?
Right.
I'm left to shrug my shoulders.
Yeah, it's same. I feel like when's it gonna end? Is it gonna end? Is this gonna be normal? It's funny because when I interviewed the Dr. Katz from Georgetown, I post videos now of like we talked in February of 2020, like before like shit got real, and she's literally calling it. She's like, it's probably gonna be like where masks are normal, like they're in China.
Yep.
And I'm like, get the fuck out of here, you're crazy.
That was an easy call to make.
Yeah, she's like, it's like shutting down schools, like all these things that are now basically normalized for us now.
I predict that we will have people who never take the masks off again.
Wow, you think so?
Of course.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course, because as soon as this virus is eradicated, the next one will be along.
True.
And if it worked last time, well, let's do it again this time.
True.
I'm pretty sure masks don't do much good at all.
I actually don't think they do, like because the molecules are too small.
Yep, just not convinced, but everybody else is convinced enough to keep doing it.
Right.
So I predict I will not live a day on this planet where I don't see people wearing masks. I mean, it's so stupid at this point, and I mean stupid. Excuse me. That I'm driving down the road and I see people alone in a car wearing a mask. What the fuck do you think you're going to get alone in your car? I mean, if you think you need a mask, you should have rubber gloves on too.
Yeah, those are funny. When I see those, what
the hell's wrong with people? I see people walking outside, literally 500 feet from any other living creature, let alone people.
Right.
Masked up.
Yep. The airplanes too. Airplanes have a different air circulation too. Like, so I think that was kind of counterintuitive as well, as to having to wear a mask on airplanes. But
I'm on an airplane probably 2 or 3 times a week at this point, right? I travel a lot.
Right.
And the thing that I have found is that the flight crew was very emphatic in that first month or so about you best be wearing your mask. They are no longer emphatic like that anymore.
No.
One of them, I won't even say which airline I was on. It rhymes with American. Anyway, I'm on the plane and I said, "Oh, fuck it." I just put the mask up on my head because my head is big and bald, and it held the mask quite nicely. And nobody bothered to say a word to me until 5 minutes before we started to land. At which point, the flight attendant leaned in and said, "You're really going to have to put that on."
Yeah.
So it's not like they didn't notice.
No, they knew. And that's the other thing is too. It's like, I love when they announce like, "Oh, listen, if you're going to eat, also just make sure you eat." And I'm like,
put it down between bites. You got to be fucking kidding me.
I know. Yeah. Go to a restaurant and you're like this invisible force field's going to block me from when I have my mask on from when the hostess takes me to my table and then I take it up. It's like fucking crazy.
Yeah. Where I am here in Tucson, people kind of gave that crap up a long time ago.
Same here in Colorado Springs.
There's a lot of people here, 500,000, like we said earlier, and they've got a degree of common sense which you don't often see.
Right.
So I'm kind of happy living with them. They're not crazy.
Same.
Mostly, so good to go.
I agree.
I did get yelled at at the Trader Joe's by a woman who clearly had graduated medical school by the age of 22. And she started yelling at me, and I said, "Well, do you know who cares about what your opinion is?" And she said, "No." I said, "Not me. Go away.
Bye.
Just go away." She was horrified that somebody might have arrived at a different conclusion.
Right.
Which I think there's the emblematic difficulty.
That's
right.
It.
We've got 2 different groups of people living under the same tent who can't quite figure out how anybody could believe anything other than exactly what they believe.
Right.
Well, there's your problem.
That's a huge problem. And that's what I mean when it's so politicized as far as like the left, and you can't even have a fucking conversation with certain people because it becomes not factual, it's emotional. And it's just like, what, like, dude, when I'm reading some of these comments, like in some of Anthony's videos, I don't even comment because I'm like, I'm not about to go down those rabbit hole because this person is clearly
there's nothing good happening in the comments.
Nothing. No,
I always tell young people who ask me, what they should know if they start writing, for, like I do.
Right.
And I said, well, never, ever, ever, and I mean never, read the comments.
Right.
Those people are just looking to pour acid all over you.
Oh yeah, trolls.
Yep, nothing good comes of it, and young people always read the comments.
I know.
And then I got to talk them off a ledge, right?
It's hard.
These are basement dwellers.
Yeah.
Neckbeard basement dwellers. And you got to let it go.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're young and you think you've just done a good thing, and you sent the link to all your friends and your mother.
Yeah.
And she said, "Why is this person calling you a Nazi?"
Yeah.
I don't understand.
No, that's true.
And there it is, right? And I combat this literally every day of the week.
Right. I'm sure.
It's my job to put things online so people can read rational things.
Right.
At AIER.org, by the way, go right over there and take a look. And I'm bringing that place as best I can into consonance with, fully sensible things, and that's hard, right? Because everybody who writes for us, myself included, well, we believe things very strongly.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't get it right. It just means we have to measure twice and cut once.
Right.
Check where we're going. So, does all of this end well? Yeah, probably not. It probably is never ending.
Right.
But if you sit and think back to 20 years ago, weren't we already on that path?
True.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So at some point, I think it becomes reasonable to tell people to cut it out.
Right.
They won't, of course, cut it out.
No.
But it becomes reasonable. At least you could say that.
At least half of them won't.
That's right. Half of them will until the next election.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Speaking of,
I look forward to when Chelsea Clinton can run for the president.
I can't wait. Or the Bushes, the daughters. I mean.
Oh, sure. I forget all about them.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Jenna and some other woman. I don't remember that one's name.
Shit, if I know all I know is Chelsea Clinton. That's like the only.
Yeah, it's easier because there's only the one.
Only one, right? Exactly. So I've always was wondering about term limits with these motherfuckers.
A lot of people are wondering about that lately.
Like, okay, I mean, for example, Biden. For all of you watching and listening, if you Google any of his old videos, there's videos of him in parades with things like the Grand Master of the KKK. There's like his stance on certain things has done a complete 180. Which,
well, older Democrats, Biden's age, and even a little younger, are all going to have a Klan problem.
Right.
And that's just how it was, right? The entire South was solidly Democratic. It was called the Solid South by Democrats. And in order to keep winning, and they won every single election for decades, they needed broad support from across the constituencies. And one of the constituencies was the Klan. Wow. Right. So it's just, I mean, look, it's awful, but you can't point at it and say that's a choice they made for no good reason. I get why this happened.
Right.
And there's, we had a couple of guys from the Klan on the Supreme Court. That was a portion of our history that was just one problem after another. And if you thought you were ever going to be able to solve the bigger ones, then you had to overlook a bunch of the other ones.
Right.
And I'm not willing to hold people to task if I probably would have done the same thing. Right. You needed to win first before you could even make a dent in these issues.
Right. True.
And by the time you get to 1964 with the Civil Rights Act, well, Democrats were fully in control of that. Right. They had an opportunity to do something, and then they did it.
Right.
And we could talk about how that law was kind of broken, how there were a bunch of problems with it, how it yielded perverse outcomes and things like this. But the simple fact remains, if we're going to pick on the Democratic Party for being in bed with the Klan throughout the time of the Solid South, well, what about that? What about the 64 Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of 65? These were Democrat things. So I'm not willing to just push them down into the sewer. It's unfair.
Right.
And I think this is the kind of thing that political opponents should often do. Right. You should say, all right, look, we always blame them for this, but they made right the minute they could.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And that's kind of like the only reason why I brought it up was because like the amount of time that has spanned for Biden and I mean, it's like 50 plus years.
He's an old guy.
it just in politics, and that's, I know that's not terms, but like, I mean, Jesus Christ, like, I mean, it's kind of senators and like their terms are insane. Like, how is Mitch McDonald, whatever his name is, like
I think he came into.
Pelosi?
I think he got his office during the Civil War.
Literally, like Pelosi's like, you're like 60, like these
Yeah.
people, like there has to be, and then why is that a thing, and it cannot
Well,
be
but
changed.
no, it can't be changed. And here's the thing: we needed a constitutional amendment to term limit the president. At the time the Constitution was written, 1787, people thought, and this the thought of term limits came up at the convention of 1787.
Wow.
People talked about it, and they said, "Well, we probably shouldn't have them because what would it mean if we did? Well, that means we would be limiting the choice of the public if they decided they really liked this guy and wanted him for a third term or a second term, whatever. They wouldn't have that opportunity, and there's something perfectly reasonable about that." Then you realize all the benefits of incumbency that we know about in retrospect that the guys at the convention could never have predicted.
Right.
And then it seems that when you get 95% reelection rates, there's probably an advantage to being in the Congress if you want to stay in the Congress, right? But here's the thing: we needed an amendment to get the president term limited. So the 2 terms, that comes from the constitutional amendment, not the original drafted material. And nowhere in the Constitution does it say word one about term limits for House members or senators. And people were pushing them through at the state level, right? Because if you think about it, every single person in our government is elected in a state. The president and the vice president are the only 2 that aren't, right? So everybody, one way or another, is from a state. So it seemed reasonable for people to conclude, well, given that they work for the states or some such, right, then it would be reasonable for state governments to implement term limits. And not unsurprisingly, you got Republican state governments deciding to term limit out a bunch of Democrats who had won statewide election. It's obvious that that was a bunch of bullshit that they were doing.
Right.
And when it was reversed, you see what a bunch of nonsense this becomes. But most people don't know this. In 1995, a case made its way to the Supreme Court. It was at U.S. term limits versus Thornton, and the Supreme Court of the United States declared term limits unconstitutional. So that's the reality you have to live with. In order to make them constitutional, you would require a constitutional amendment, just like we had with the presidency. And if it's such a good goddamn idea, well, then go get one. It should be easy to get a constitutional amendment if everybody agrees with you. Right. But come to find out, nobody agrees with you. Now, I think given the polarization that we see right now, you can see where we will never have that supermajority that would be required to get an amendment through.
Right.
That's just how it is.
Right.
But people, I think they talk about term limits all the time as if we could just wave a magic wand tomorrow and make that happen. We can't.
Right.
You can have term limits in your state legislatures. That happens, right? That's a thing that happens. And when people know that's a thing that happens, they think, well, why the hell can't we just do it here too?
Right.
But the rules are in fact different.
Right.
So
interesting. I never.
If you think that's a great idea, sorry, you're out of luck. It's not.
Yeah. I just, is it fair though?
Probably. I think. At least, look, you're delving into that layer that's really just opinion.
Right.
There's no fact that I could throw down here, but I'm persuaded by the original arguments that there is a term limit. It's called an election.
So win the election.
If your guy is so terrible, it should be real easy to beat him. And yet that's a form of logic that we don't often see.
That's actually makes sense.
If you think of the kind of the old time senators, right? Robert Byrd. I've driven through West Virginia. Literally everything in the state is named after him.
Yep.
Right. He was the pork king.
Yeah.
He brought more money back to West Virginia than West Virginia ever had on its own. And of course he did that to get reelected. And of course he was reelected. Right. So there's always a problem underneath things. Right? You don't want people spending wantonly like the government does. It's like a bunch of drunken sailors on shore leave, for God's sake. But there's really no way apart from elections to undo that. And if people don't pay enough attention to these sorts of things, then they're never going to be wise in an election.
Right.
Well, sorry.
Yeah.
Who should we blame? Everybody.
Yeah,
That's the correct
I agree. I think there's like I mean, I don't even know when senators and not Republicans, but congressmen, like their elections are until I start seeing pickets everywhere.
Yeah, it's actually easy. So the president's every 4 years. The House is every 2 years. So we're coming up on the 2-year one. They'll start campaigning in earnest real soon. But every time this happens, right, when a party takes the presidency, it loses congressional seats coming and going. So here's a prediction for you: the Democrats will do very poorly in the mid-year election. Now, this is going to make me seem like Nostradamus when it's exactly what happens. But if you go back through our history, you'll see that it literally happens every 4 years. Right. Every party out of presidential power has remarkable gains in the midterm election. So the House is every 2 years, which means every single person in the House of Representatives can be turned out within 2 years.
Wow.
And the founders said, well, that's good because that will bind them to the will of the people. People want things in the immediate sense.
Right.
So let's give them the most numerous branch of the Congress and say, this represents you. Every 2 years, you can vote them all out and get whatever you want. The Senate, on the other hand, they have elections every 2 years, but it's a third. Right. So you could only turn out 1/3 of the Senate every 2 years. You get 66% in that, the next 2 years. And then you get 100% after the third. And what ends up happening, because they can't be turned out rapidly, because it would take 3 years for each of them to come up for reelection, the Senate ends up representing long-term interests. Right? So you've got immediate interests in the House. I want this and I want it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got long-term interest in the Senate. What would be the best thing to do so we're all better off in 6 years?
Right.
And if you really watch, they operate according to those two different ideas.
That's crazy.
It is, but what even emerges, right? If you think about your average House member, they always seem kind of crazy and silly,
right?
Because they're always playing to a base back home in a congressional district. Senators, on the other hand, come off as dignified, above it all. Even the ones that you don't like, right? Think Chuck Schumer from New York, who's the biggest ass of all the asses I've seen in a long time. If you watch him, he comports himself differently than a member of the House. He walks slower. He looks more thoughtful, right? It's right down to the marrow. So always understand that these sorts of details, in no small way, determine what our outcomes are long before there are any outcomes to observe.
That's
and
insane.
you just bet on certain things happening because that's how it was designed.
Right. That's what's fascinating is like that was designed how long ago, and they had that much
1787
foresight to like think like this is how it should work. And that's crazy.
And you can read these things. James Madison took copious notes at the Federal Convention. Federal Convention was great fun, right? Because first they sent 55 men ended up signing, but more showed up. And they were sent there in order to revise the Articles of Confederation, which were at the time the Constitution that we had. Nobody pays any attention to it. So all these guys got there, and they looked around in Independence Hall, a place you can visit in Philadelphia if you ever feel like it. You should. It's great. They walked into Independence Hall. They looked around and they said, "But you know what we really need to do? We need to just expel the press right now." And the entire press was shown the door.
Wow.
Not one reporter was left inside. So, if that's the first thing you do, the second thing you do is going to be some shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know that second thing they do is something way out of bounds. And it was. They kicked out the press, they shut the doors, they closed all the windows, and you can imagine how that smelled in 1787 in the summer.
Yeah.
When they're all wearing thick wool coats and fake hair.
Yeah.
But right, that must have been like a YMCA smelling so bad. And they said the first thing they did after they kicked out the press was they said, well, surely there's no way that we can fix the Articles of Confederation. Let's start over.
Yeah. Reading.
Seriously? You got to be fucking kidding me. If
Wow.
you read the Articles of Convention, or the Articles of Confederation, what you find is that it's impossible. You cannot amend the Articles. There's no amendment process there that doesn't require unanimity. So you could have started over, but you would have needed every state to be unanimous and wanting.
Right.
And Rhode Island was the Florida of its day. If there was something goofy happening, you could bet your ass it was happening in
Rhode Island, man.
Rhode Island. And there was a while when they had 2 fucking governors, any stupid thing you can imagine.
Right.
And they couldn't manage to get a delegation to Independence Hall. Everybody else had no problem with this.
Right.
But Rhode Island just couldn't pull the trigger. So right there, you know that there will be no unanimity. There can't be. Rhode Island's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Making matters a little worse, the state of New York sent 3 people. 2 of them looked around and left. They said, this isn't what we decided to do. We're out of here, which meant that New York didn't have a quorum either. The 3rd guy from New York, Alexander Hamilton, you might have heard of him, he stuck around.
Wow.
The other 2 left. Yeah. So right off the bat, 2 states don't even get a vote. This is not going to be unanimous. It can't be.
Right.
So they ended up rewriting the Constitution. By the time they were done, only 55 men remained in the building.
Wow.
And they wrote a hell of a thing. And you can go through. Madison's notes are published. You can read them day by day, and they're fascinating because it walks you right through everything. I mean, you think about how easy it is that, yeah, of course our president is elected every 4 years. Well, what made you think you had to have a president?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, we didn't have one under the Articles. Why would we have one here?
Right.
The president's kind of monarchical. Maybe that might not be a great idea. Well, that was never really seriously considered. Of course we were going to at the time. And what else? It was going to be one dude. But at the time, people were saying, why not a committee?
Right.
Well, why not a committee? That's not a terrible idea. You know, you got to get 3 of 5 to go do anything. Well, that's actually not a terrible idea at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the thing we chose, and we chose lots of things wisely and a couple of other things not so wisely. And here we are. But there's no mystery to it, right? You can go back and read this all you like.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I wish more people would. It'd be an easier world to live in.
Right. They would understand it more.
Yeah, and look, when you read the thing, you find out a couple of things. George Washington said almost nothing.
Really?
He presided over it. He didn't engage himself in long speeches.
Wow.
He just sat there being dignified. Why? Because he knew there was going to be a presidency, and everybody knew it was going to be him first.
Really?
He won the office unanimously.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. How the hell did you do that?
Right.
Well, you did it in a bunch of ways, not the least of which is shutting your stupid mouth.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't talk a lot when he didn't have something to say. And Washington, he made his bones quitting things. And if you think, right. If you think about it, it's brilliant. Think about the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War. That was a war we never should have won. There's no way in hell that we should have won that. And realistically, we didn't have to. What we had to do was not lose. The British had to keep sending people 3,000 miles from home.
Right.
All we had to do was keep not losing, and sooner or later they would pack up and leave.
Right.
And that's about what happened. But somewhere in the middle, some of his men said, George, you should just be king. And he bitch slapped them down so hard it's not even funny. You can read he had articles, and he had an article published that laid out from a letter why he didn't want to do this. And then after the revolution is over, Washington shows up in full dress with his sword to the United States Capitol, which was then in Annapolis, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And he walked in with the United States Congress in a room and gave back a ceremonial sword. He quit the army.
What?
Yeah, he quit, thus establishing civilian control of the military forever and all time. Unbelievable.
What?
Right? Why on earth would he want to quit? Well, by quitting, he had a legacy that no other man will ever have. He had power, and he gave it up.
Right.
Amazing. Then he's president unanimously. twice, 8 years. And at the end of the 8 years, he said, you know what? That's enough. I'm going to go back to my farm now.
Right.
And it's the first time in human history somebody willingly said, you know what? It's been nice, but I no longer want this political power. And his example, giving up the presidency, was so good that everybody did it after the second term until Franklin Roosevelt in the 20th century.
Really?
So this is what you're looking at when you're looking at Washington. He was absolutely a great man. People don't even comprehend how great he was.
Wow.
But he gave up power every time he had the chance, and it became institutionalized immediately thereafter. So Washington didn't say much. Ben Franklin, probably the most famous of all the people in the room, when things got bad and people started yelling at each other, insulting each other, Ben Franklin would draw everybody close and offer a prayer. Why? Because he was the old dude.
Yeah.
He was the guy that everybody thought, well, we got one adult in the room. And when he said, you got to stop this, they did.
They listened, yeah.
Just as you would if you walked into a room with a bunch of young people and one guy in his 70s, right? If you said, look, you're doing this incorrectly, you might actually listen.
Right.
And people did listen to Franklin. And you start, these things emerge as you start reading through the convention notes that Madison took. And it's a beautiful thing, right? The convention was unbelievable, totally high-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, they ratify the Constitution inside the room. And what do? They send it out. They say, well, let's send it to the states. And 9 of 13, if 9 of 13 buy into this, we're going with it. Well, that was against the letter of the law of the Articles of Confederation, which said 13 of 13. But the people who wrote the new one were claiming a much higher authority. They weren't looking at legalisms. They were looking at things that they would more likely consider the natural law, and things that we had to settle as a people, or we were all going to be in real trouble. You can get away with a failed constitution. You couldn't have gotten away with 2. This was the last chance they had.
Right.
And they grabbed it with everything they had. So I think the entire thing is so honorable that it breaks my heart when people don't know anything about it. Right. And what if we learned? We've learned that the people who did this were all villains in the American story.
Right.
And that's asinine. Of course, they were human beings, and some of them had done pretty horrific things, but they had done, largely speaking, what all the other humans had done.
Right.
Except they were smarter and a little more high-minded.
Right.
Because they were able to put all of what they wanted aside and figure out what would work best
for the future.
And here we are. And look, I'm not going to make the case that we haven't prostituted the Constitution in every way. We have. Mm-hmm. But that it still exists at all is shocking. It's shocking.
It is fascinating.
If you could bring James Madison back and say, well, what looks weird to you, Jimmy Madison? He would say, but you guys are still using that Constitution we wrote? You got to be shitting me.
Yeah, they're all drunk, just making shit up.
Yeah. And one of these days I'll send you over the bar tab for George Washington's retirement party.
Really?
It's astonishing.
Wow.
It's astonishing. Those fuckers drank more than any group of people ever should have had.
That's crazy.
They were living hard.
So George Washington, by him forfeiting after 8 years, that kind of like set the okay.
There's your term limit.
Wow,
it was enough. And when did we get the constitutional amendment breaking the other way on this? Right after we had seen Roosevelt win a 4th term. He didn't get to serve it. Yeah, he didn't serve it. He died. So he was into his 4th term. But when George W. says, when George Washington says 2 years is enough for any man, and then somebody gets 4, and then a minute and a half later, we have a constitutional amendment on the way.
Right.
You can tell that Washington over time still wins the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all cared about something. We just forgot why we cared about it.
Right. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I would love to see the bar tab from back then.
Oh, I'll send it over to you tonight. You probably want to put it up on the screen. It's really that funny.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll put that up. It's probably handwritten, obviously. Wow.
It's really
send it over. I'll pop it up. Yeah. What do you think about recently with AOC when she went to the Met Gala? That with her wearing tax the rich. And that's kind of my thing, is like she came into Congress of like a poor from the
Right.
Bronx, even though she left the Bronx at 5.
Yeah.
Um, and now she's going to a place where the average ticket's $30,000, and she's at
Sure. And
a
make no
party.
mistake, she didn't buy that ticket.
No, of course not. No, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like it's. I think it sent the wrong message of like tax the rich, but you're at a party that's basically to glorify the rich.
Yeah, that's right.
So like, I don't
And
know. I
look,
just anyway.
well, I mean,
George Washington,
I
AOC.
yeah, I know, boy, from tremendous heights right to the gutter. But I should say this: some years ago, matter of fact, it was 1987. The good people at Boston University called me into the office and they said, James, you're going to have to leave. Get out. I was told that I could no longer study there. Fast forward some years, the school that threw me out gave her an economics degree. Draw your own conclusions. Draw your own conclusions. Because what she knows about economics could probably fill a seashell. There's almost nothing that she knows. I mean, almost nothing. And she's tone deaf, right? Because here we are. She's the woman of the people, and she's going to crank about that till her dying day. And yet, the first chance she gets to throw on that $50,000 dress, or how much they paid for it, I don't. And go to the big expensive gala. Well, of course she went.
Right.
And you can see how she's becoming a congressman now.
Yes.
Right? At first, she was something other. She was a protest vote in no uncertain terms. Mm-hmm. But now she's just one of the boys.
Right.
And you'll see more of this happening over the next. I mean, she's in a safe district, right? If they kept that district intact, she would get reelected every term. Every 2 years, she'd be right back in. Now, she did piss a bunch of people off, not the least of whom Nancy Pelosi. And there was a lot of grumbling about districting her out of existence, which, she keeps doing stupid things and making the party look even dumber than it is.
Right.
Yeah, they might district her out of existence.
And district her, you mean they would just like get rid of that district and she wouldn't?
No, redraw the lines so that she couldn't possibly win.
Wow.
I mean, this is what gerrymandering is, and we think that it's always the party in power that would want to extend its reach, because of course it would. But sometimes it's almost as important to get rid of a lunatic in your midst.
Right.
And who was that Republican, Congressman King, who was just a racist to his core, right? Yeah. And, if you're in the leadership of the House of Representatives as a Republican, you got to think, how the hell can we get him out of here?
Right.
Every time he opens his mouth, all the other congressmen in all the other states are in real trouble because you're the party of racists.
Right.
And look, let's be honest, the Republican Party is the party of racists.
Yeah.
That's a factual claim, just like the Democratic Party is the party of communists. Now, does it mean that all of them are racist? No, not even close. A very, very slim minority. Does it mean that all of the Democrats are communists? No, a very slim minority. But those are the real problems each party has with its constituents.
Right. There's always that one or two that are just like.
Yeah, I think it's a wash in the end that they probably cancel each other out.
Right. Yeah, I was just fascinated when I saw her because she came in.
The dress was striking, right?
It was very nice.
Big, expensive white dress with something painted across the back of it. Tax the rich.
Really? And then she's got these shirts that she's making, I think, like 80% profit on.
It does make a man scratch his head and wonder about what true socialism is.
It's like, yeah.
Because, I'm a shirt-needing American. Why don't I just get them for free?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't have enough shirts. Send them on over.
I don't have shirts. That's insane. Well, who's going to be with all these like the 2 trillion that we did that Trump did?
Now up to 3.5 trillion.
I think it's 3. Yeah. Who's going to pay for all this?
Nobody. Nobody's ever going to pay for that.
Really?
No, the entire economy will collapse.
Like, that's what you're saying will happen?
Yeah, that's going to happen. The same way I know the sun rises in the east, I know that this economy is going to tank. And when it does, it'll take the entirety of the monetary system with it. There will be no such thing as dollars. There might not be such thing as the United States.
What?
Well,
let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah, think about it this way. If the government of France disappeared tomorrow, there would still be France.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I know it's populated by French people? There's an ethnic basis for statehood. So to the Germans, the Scots, the English, take your pick. If the government of the United States disappeared tomorrow, would there still be a United States? Yeah, it's not as obvious an answer,
Right.
right? You got to sit back and say, well, all right, maybe that's right. And what's going to happen? Right? We're running up these incredible bills, and sooner or later, we're not even going to be able to make the interest payments, which is going to send things into a tailspin. And before long, they're going to have Venezuela questions to answer. How do you want to deal with this? Because there's only a couple of ways, and they ruin you wholesale either way. All right, so what's going to happen? The monetary system will collapse. The dollar will be worthless. I mean, if you go to Venezuela, you can't buy things with their money anymore. They don't count the money, they weigh it. Because that's how worthless it is.
Oh my
They
God.
fucking weigh the money. And when we get to that point here, because what are we doing different than the Venezuelans did? Nothing, actually. Looks very much the same. When that happens, dollars will be worthless. The government will collapse because governments always collapse when that happens. And when that happens, we're not the United States of America anymore. Because the United States of America doesn't make a lot of logical sense. Historically, it does. It makes lots of historical sense, but logical sense, not so much. Where I live in Tucson, Arizona, we share more in common with the Mexicans on the other side of the border than we do with any of the New England states. Now, the New England states, they have an interest that you can just say, yeah, that's their interest.
Right.
You could actually also include portions of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. You draw a circle right around that part of the country and say, these are the same people. And then you get to the Mountain West when you're kind of there now. There's something about the Mountain West that is different from every place else. I'm in the Desert West where we don't have water. We have a commonality of interest here. So to the Pacific Northwest, granola eating liberal types up there, right? That it represents a real interest.
Right.
And if you take a look, right, we have the answer already. People just don't realize it yet. The FEMA disaster map of how to get services to places that are hit by real catastrophes. It divides the United States into 10 zones, and those 10 zones make perfect sense.
What?
Because they have to.
Yeah.
If you got to use these things to get needed supplies into a place where people are dying, you sure as shit better have a culture that can withstand it.
Right.
So they just blocked them all off. Now, I think it's wrong to the extent that Utah, I don't think will be part of any other state. I think Utah always goes its own way. The Utahns, the Mormons who live there, already have the plan. It's the state of Deseret, and they're the shadow government.
Wow.
What we have fails. And I suspect that Texas is going its own way too. But everything else, I think, just breaks down on very logical lines. And the nice part here is that, when World War II happened, by the end, where the Germans and the Italians were weighing currency, right, kind of like the Venezuelans now, those countries were leveled.
Right.
They were destroyed. And it wasn't altogether clear who was going to make that work again,
right.
Which is why you get this thing, the Marshall Plan, and we start building up Europe. When it happens here, it's actually not that big a deal, not like it was with war-ravaged economies, because the productive capacity of the United States remains exactly as it was the day before. We can make shit. We're just going to need a better system to do the accounting. We'll need a better monetary system. Yeah, when Ant and I first started thinking these thoughts, we said, okay, everybody's going to think that's crazy.
Yeah, doomsday.
Let's not talk about that in public.
Right.
And about a year ago, we said, well, I don't think anybody's going to call us crazy. Now it just seems like a very, very good prediction.
Right.
We are.
It sounds like it totally. And by saying collapse, do you mean literally like there won't be any government, there won't be any more police, there won't be any like what do you mean by collapse?
The federal system will collapse. You'll still have state power, right? There will be states, and the question is how much of that gets exerted over time.
Right.
I don't know. But look, if I had pulled you aside and I said, look, man, it's 1922, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure the stock market's going to crash. within a comfortable span of years, right? And I'm pretty sure we're going to end up with a Great Depression. I can't tell you when, but I'm sure it's going to happen. Why? Well, I know history.
Right.
That's what happens when things get like they are now. You would have to think about it, and you'd have to say, okay, is that guy, does he know what he's talking about, or is he crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And if you thought even for a second that I might be right, you would take measures. You would make sure that you had what you needed to get through a hard time. Go do that. That's not hard. That's not crazy.
Right.
You should have some food around your house, right? It should be able to last you a while. You should have a consistent water source, right? Make sure you're not beholden to anybody to get these basic things. You should have some weapons. You should have some bullets, right?
Right.
You should just be living, I don't want to call it a prepper lifestyle, but a self-sufficient one.
Right.
Well, there's nothing crazy about that. And if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, you're the guy who had too much food in his house.
Right. Right. Too many guys.
That just doesn't seem like that big a deal.
Right. Yeah. No,
So,
I totally understand that. That makes total sense.
Yeah, I don't want to live in the middle of a major metropolitan area. I'll live outside of town. That's fine.
Yeah.
But not downtown where lots of people are all the time, where they become unruly first.
Right.
That's not my kind of thing. Do I think this is going to happen? Yeah, I know this is going to happen. When?
You know when? No, you
nope,
don't know.
Can't tell you. Can't tell you.
It could be decades or what?
It's hard to imagine, right? When Anthony and I first started this, our best guess was 25, 35 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 10 years ago. And the debt has gotten much, much worse. And it's escalating now exponentially. It's not a linear thing anymore, right? It was linear, and then it just did this. And sooner or later, and here's where it's going to get ugly, nobody's going to loan the United States government any more money.
Right.
Because they're all going to realize they're never going to get it paid back.
Right.
And the government is already running out of places to borrow. That's more of a problem than most people are willing to do.
Damn.
So when you can't borrow any more money, you're always going to do the same thing. It's what the Venezuelans did. You're going to print more.
Yep.
And when you print more, it's all going to be worthless. And when it's worthless and nobody will use it anymore, what's the point in the United States again?
Right.
And now it doesn't sound crazy at all.
Damn.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
Damn, man.
Sorry. But look, go take steps.
Yeah. Listen, don't gotta tell me twice. I can get a couple cans of tuna and a couple of ARs.
Yeah, there you go. You're like a bad prepper.
Yeah, I'm terrible. Yeah.
Cans of tuna.
Yeah, don't rely on me to help.
There could be any mayonnaise after the apocalypse. Tuna is no good.
This is true. I didn't even think about that. Fucking mayonnaise. Well, so what do you think about the okay, am I wrong? Did the federal government cut off the unemployment or the extra unemployment that they were given?
I can't keep it straight.
I don't know.
Every now and then too, I get a letter in the mail saying I get some thousands of dollars by virtue of having children. So I was a breeder, and now I get checks in the mail. I'm not quite sure I understand. I don't understand when I don't get them. I don't understand when I do get them.
Yeah.
But hey, why not? I'm just a PhD in political science. You would expect me to understand it.
Yeah. Well, what do you know?
Yeah, no, that's right. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was walking through the halls when I was still working at the University of Arizona. And you've seen these dopes that walk around trying to register people to vote all the time.
Right.
One of them gets me in the hall and she says, would you like to register to vote? And I said, I'm a political scientist. We're not allowed to. And she went, oh,
huh?
Okay. Turned around and walked away. So I think we're not getting the right kind of people to go looking for people to sign up to vote.
Right. That's so funny.
Just saying.
What do you know about voting?
Right. Yeah, not much.
Yeah. Well, I think because I know DeSantis in Florida and I think Abbott in Texas basically were like, listen, we're not taking any more federal aid because like the workforce, I know like my job, my real job, it's like hard to keep people because people are making like, $1,000 sitting on their couch eating potato chips instead of coming in and doing work. Like with that, taxed with all these bills and everything like that. Like, I don't know how do we fix that, or can you even fix that?
Yeah, at this point, it's not fixable.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's not fixable. Look, there might be a technical way to fix it, but realistically, here on the ground where we live with politicians, no, We've passed the point of no return on this.
Really?
So yeah. So brace yourself. It's going to be worse. It's going to be a lot. Yeah.
Damn.
Sorry, I
James,
don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I know. I'm just like
killing me.
I'm like a wet blanket. Shut
Yeah,
up.
man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
It's gonna
no,
get
I
worse.
understand.
Oh,
It
man.
is going to get worse. There's no doubt it's going to get worse. And if you ask people, if you get people off to the side who have been trained in these sorts of things, who know what they're looking at, they all admit that this is untenable.
Right.
So, you can't blow it by anyone anymore. Now, regular voters, they're still convinced that one party is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But these two parties are loaded with the fools that fiddled while Rome burned.
Right.
And that's just what it is. Years ago, Ant and I figured out how we could pay off the debt. This was back when it was about 20 trillion. Now it's 30 trillion. And in order to pay it off, you would have had to cut the federal budget, not the Washington cut where they cut what they were going to increase by, but a legitimate cut. You'd have to cut it 15%. Already it's impossible because you don't get 15% unless you make your way to Social Security. And nobody's cutting Social Security. So, okay, that's not going to happen. But after you make the 15% cut, you have to hold that spending constant for 6 years, not one addition for 6 years. And that presumes that the economy doesn't tank from the 15% cut. It would, but fuck it, stay with me anyway for the reason of an example. Then you could increase spending in lockstep with GDP. So as GDP went up, you could spend that many percentage points more on whatever. But you would have to do that then for 100 years to pay off the debt.
What?
Yeah, fat fucking chance. That's what we're looking at. Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
Didn't you and Ant or somebody say like we only are basically just gonna have to all we have to do is pay the interest on our debt?
That was what Ant said, but it's getting to the point now where that's not going to happen either.
What the
right? Just remember, the Fed is giving us near zero inflation for years. All of a sudden, we're seeing inflation pick up again, and I don't think it's possible for the Fed to shut it down.
Right?
Why? Because they've already shot every arrow in their quiver. There's nothing more they can do. And when you start looking at what we're up against now, all of a sudden, interest rates are going to start going up. There's no way they stay this low forever. How do I know? Well, it never stays this low forever.
Right.
The average interest rate in this country about 6%. That's about the average running for the last 50, 60 years. When it goes from 2% to 6%, how's the federal government going to pay the debt now? They won't even be able to pay the interest.
Right.
Why? Because interest just tripled. They weren't doing a particularly good job of paying it before.
Right.
So, here's what we're left with. There has been significant mismanagement. And in the end, we got that significant mismanagement because politicians gave the people what the people wanted. People wanted a bunch of free shit that never have to pay for. And we're running deficits so big at this point that $1 of every 4 that gets spent is on credit. 25% of all the spending is deficit spending.
What?
Yeah.
From the government.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way to make a happy ending here.
Right.
The government spends money it does not have, and sooner or later the government will have bills it cannot pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. You know if you went to the most expensive restaurant in town every day for a month, that would be very, very ill-advised on your part. That would be a stupid move. You should never do that because sooner or later you got to pay that back.
Right.
And if you're a regular person, the most expensive restaurant in town is maybe a once-a-year kind of place.
Right.
Not every night kind of place. Well, I mean, this is what we're looking at with the federal government. They spend 25% more than they take in.
Damn.
You're a genius to figure out what's going to happen next.
True. Yeah.
You know where the geniuses are? They're the ones doing backflips to tell you why that won't happen. I mean, who do you believe here? Somebody that points at a simple thing and says, well, that simple thing is going to yield a pretty simple problem?
Right.
Or do you believe the MMT people who say that we can just print all the money we want?
Yeah, we're good.
Nothing
We're good.
bad will ever happen.
Right.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
Right. That's
of course
crazy.
something bad is going to happen. For God's sake. Now they want us to print $2 trillion coins and use that. What the fuck is wrong with that? You think you can have $1 trillion coin and why do they want us to make two of them? Why not just a $4 trillion coin instead of two? So I don't know. I try not to think too hard about what's wrong right now, because what's wrong right now is just a variation on the same theme that we've had since I was a child.
Right. That's fucked up, man.
Yeah, brace yourself. The worst is yet to come.
All right. Well, I'm gonna PB&J, I guess. No tuna.
Yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with that.
All right,
Man can live on peanut butter for years.
Right. All right. This is. I didn't expect this.
Yeah, no, we made a bad left turn there at some point.
AOC, you fucked everything up.
That's right. We ended off in a pretty ridiculous corner of the internet here.
Yeah. Welcome to. Oh my God, dude, that's fucked up.
Yeah, if you come over for dinner, it'll always. This is what my house is like.
I was gonna say, God damn, man, just dark.
That's right.
Wow. Well, then let's end on a positive note.
Sure. Do you have one?
I mean, hopefully. Next president.
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it?
It is. Who's going to be next president? You and.
Well, I mean, the smart money is on Kamala Harris, not being elected, but. Look,
Biden dying.
Joe Biden is the oldest president we've ever had. He doesn't look so sharp anymore. So the smart money would be on her. I don't know where the next smart money would go.
Not Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, no.
I love her.
More's the pity. I thought she was interesting. I thought it would have been great if a Republican would have grabbed her as the vice presidential candidate. Right? We're going to work with the other party. We're going to be honest with each other. That would have been a winning move. I thought Joe Biden should have gone after Condoleezza Rice.
I remember you saying that.
Which is, I think, and I think it is a brilliant idea because I had it. But she's really great.
Right.
And if you're kind of a crackpot liberal and you bring Condoleezza Rice on, I'm probably thinking you're not a crackpot after all.
Right.
That there's a reasonable part of you that you needed to let out. So I would have liked those things. Now, where that leaves us for next time, I don't know. Trump is still making all kinds of bluster that he's going to run again. I don't think he could hope to win again, but he could divide the Republican vote so badly that the Democrats would have a cakewalk right back into the office.
Kind of like what they did last time.
Well,
right.
Donald Trump has a lot of negatives.
Yeah.
He's high negative. He's high positive too, but it's hard to imagine him getting over on everybody a second time after we've just seen what happened in the intermezzo, right? It was pretty obvious that crew that he put together that gave him what he needed to win just wasn't there anymore.
Right.
It was almost there, but it just wasn't there.
Right.
And it was a squeaker, right? It wasn't, in the end, it wasn't that close, but it was close enough.
Right.
It wasn't an embarrassing loss by any shot, but he's going to show up again if he's still alive. And he's old too, right?
Yeah.
And he might not live to the next election.
Right.
So we'll have to see. I don't know who the rational Republican could possibly be at this point.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's going to be maybe DeSantis. That sounds about right. And he's certainly positioning himself for it.
Yeah.
Right. He goes just far enough to satisfy the lunatics.
Yes.
And he doesn't go so far as to alienate the reasonable people.
Right.
These are political calculations that he's doing. This is not his natural answer.
Right.
He's asking people, all right, how far can I go here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so far it's been okay. Right.
He's really popular.
He's hitting the right notes. And if he's popular in Florida, a state that Republicans must win to get the presidency, well, Florida is a pretty 50-50 kind of place at this point. He would win it in a landslide.
Right.
So even if he doesn't run, he's the obvious vice presidential candidate.
Right.
He'll give you Florida. You need Florida. You're going to need Ohio too. So look there. You're going to find candidates in Ohio.
Right. Damn, man.
Who knows who they are?
That's great. I'm kind of disappointed that you said Kamala because she's just.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Biden looks like he's not in the greatest health.
Oh man, he's like,
It looks to me like he forgets a lot of things, and he's got that look on his face that any of us who had a loved one that went the way of Alzheimer's knows that face.
oh,
We've
he's,
we've all seen it before,
yep,
and I'm pretty sure I'm seeing it now.
yeah.
Am I absolutely sure? No, I'm not.
And they're never going to come out and be like, guess what?
No, no. Look, it was obvious by Reagan's second term, especially those last 2 years. It was obvious what had happened to the
Right.
people around him, and you just saw him in public less and less,
Right.
because that was the only tenable answer.
Right.
So if you stop seeing Biden in public, if he sends out surrogates more and more, you'll have a pretty good indication that everybody knows.
Right. Damn, man. That,
So you'll be able to scan the TV and watch for that.
and by law, like she would have to, she's vice president. So if he passed away, because he's probably
Yeah.
going to get a second term, I would assume.
There's no way he runs for a second term. It'd be well into his 80s.
Wow.
Well,
So you're saying that it might happen before his second term?
yeah,
What?
yeah. I'm not convinced he's going to live through his first term.
That's fucking crazy.
He's very old, and he's obviously ill.
Wow.
Well, I mean, what can you say about it?
And then Kamala Harris would just like finish the term and then run again.
Yeah, and then she could run again on her own. She could have up to 10 years in the presidency.
God forbid.
Well,
God help us.
let's face it, the American people are not lockstep behind Kamala Harris, right? She is probably, after Trump, the most alienating person I've seen on the American political stage for a while.
Right.
She's just terrible, and I think almost everybody thinks that.
Yeah. So she would have a hard time.
Sure, I mean, everybody wants to call you a racist and a sexist when you say these things, but Condoleezza Rice wouldn't have me saying these things.
Right.
So it's probably something else.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah. No, she's special.
She is a divisive character, which will come out more in the future than has.
Especially if she runs like more things will come out about her, just like when Tulsi kind of.
Of course, when Biden picked her, his poll numbers went down.
I know.
Right, crazy. People looked at that and they said, no, not that one.
Right.
So it caused him more trouble than it ever solved. But here we are in the aftermath now. We have to live with the choices we have made. It's like we're all doing the walk of shame at this point.
Right. I feel like I'm.
And here we are.
Ugh, walk of shame.
I have to make peace with what we have done.
Yeah. What did we do? Damn, man. Well, hey, look, let's talk about words and numbers. Tell me about words and numbers, and tell me about
we can. Words and numbers still operational after all these years.
Okay.
We're doing quite well with it, actually. Top 1% of all podcasts in the world.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it turns out 98% of all the other ones are 3-episode things that happened in somebody's mother's basement. So
right.
I'm not saying as much as I would like to.
I'll cut this part out.
No, that's okay. Let the people hear. We don't take ourselves that seriously, but we are still doing it. Come in week in, week out. We've never missed an episode. Even when Aunt was in the hospital, almost dead, we still got episodes out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys. Where can you find it now? It's not on fee, right?
Nope. You can just go to www.wordsandnumbersalloneword.org. And it'll pop right up for you. It's available on every platform that you might listen to your podcasts with. So words and numbers. Just go find it. It's actually easy enough. Then I got this other thing I've been doing lately, smoking stories, where I sit around smoking a pipe, which is probably going to piss a lot of people off, and then I tell a story, which is likely to piss the other people off. But it's something that my daughter and I do together. It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
I like pipes. I like smoking my pipe. And I've got enough stories probably to last forever.
I know,
some of them are even true.
Let's say
not all of them.
They're not all true?
Well, I'll take liberties with things from here and there.
I thought
they all have at least a kernel of truth, and most of them are literally true.
It's good production value too. I wanted to tell you.
She does great work, doesn't she? It's impressive.
Yeah. I was like, damn. In the intro, the funniest one was the video that you have played that's living on the channel that returning people or new people to the channel would see, is when you do like the blooper. You're like, fuck it, and then it cuts to the. I literally like spit out my food when I was like, I wasn't expecting it. It was so funny, but the intro is great.
My daughter probably swears more than I do. If you can,
how old is she?
If you can believe, she is 17.
Oh my gosh. Fiona's what,
Yeah.
20 something?
No, she's 19. What am I saying? Well, hopefully she'll never hear this. Yeah, Fiona's 21. She's 19, and the boy is 7.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah, I've got all kinds of misery all over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah. Geez, man. I'm definitely not coming over for dinner.
Yeah, you might get attacked. Sophia's the one with the bloodthirst, so
Oh,
watch out
nice.
for her.
All right. Well, she's got good creative eye though. So
Yeah, she's doing. I'm actually very, very proud of her. She's doing great work.
yeah,
I
that's
think
awesome.
she's got a career in this line of thing.
No, it was. I was like, damn, did he do this by himself? And then when you told me,
Yeah,
oh, it was my daughter, I
not
was
a
like,
chance.
there you go.
Yep, there's literally no way I could have done
Uh,
anything except sit there and tell the goofy story.
right. I mean, we're talking one ear right now with you, so it's like,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
I couldn't even get my earbuds to work properly. And there it is. Right
there we
there.
are. And that, my friends, is another episode of the E for Explicit podcast. And we'll see you next time.